I get to introduce one of my heroes. Garnet Boldrey, several years ago, when we started this whole thing, it was about Obamacare for me. We did healthcare workshops to let everybody know, this is terrible. We can't have this. This is a single payer system. This is designed to take all control away from patients and give it to the government. And I did a healthcare workshop, and Garnet came up afterwards and she said something essentially like, I'm going to adopt you and teach you how to be effective at this. And she has been my mentor for years now. Garnet does programs at her church. She holds coffees for candidates. She rabble rouses on her street. You always know where Garnet's house is because it's full of flags in the front. She is a patriot and has been a patriot for longer than I can remember. Longer than I've been alive. So it is my great honor to introduce Garnet Boldrey. I'll take that.
Okay. I'm just a little bit speechless. These children have just astonished me again. I've known this family several years now. They did programs for me, my patriotic programs that I wrote and did at the church. And every time I see them, they are even more wonderful and have grown several inches. And I've adopted them a long time ago in my heart, but I don't think I'd ever get it done legally because I think Mickey would have something to say about that. So I have been asked to share with you why I'm a patriot, why I am a patriot. This has given me pause for thought, and I've thought it over. I just accepted what I am as being a patriot as what I should be, and I'm an American and happy to be here. But there are troubling factors. But when I stopped to think about it, I came to, I was reminded of the old definition of what is love. To say, love is not something you fall into, it's something you grow. And I thought that's kind of what patriotism is. It's not something that happens by accident, it's something that we grow. And I think it's influenced by many, many factors. And so I'm going to take you back to the first line of Genesis, and it says, in the beginning. And in the beginning for me was in 1998, that's when my father was born. And in 1901, my mother was born. And they were from two farm families back in Illinois. And they were both landowners and very fine families, church-going people in a farm community. Okay, they married, and I'm number 5. And so that put me in, when I started to school, I went to a 2-room schoolhouse where all my brothers and sisters had gone to, and it was in a little town of Chansey, Illinois. 3 churches, 3 grocery stores, a post office, and a mechanical store, and a blacksmith shop. But it was sort of the sort of the center of that area. And my teacher, and there were 2 rooms in the schoolhouse. And how many of you here went to a country school or a 2-room schoolhouse? All right, okay, we have a few here. All right, And did you have a picture of Abraham Lincoln and a picture of George Washington hanging over the blackboards? All right, yes, Joanne says yes. All right, that was in both rooms. And by the time I was in the upper grades, there were 2 rooms, grades 1 through 4, and then grades 5 through 8, all right? And when you got into the upper room, then things began to happen more. All right, the war came along, and our teacher, he was a wonderful person. Forrest Case, a young man, he wore a suit every day in this little country school. And he was drafted and had to go to war. And that was after Pearl Harbor. And so then they brought a teacher out of retirement to teach our school. And so she taught for a while, and then her husband had ill health, and then they brought in the wife of a veteran, of a serviceman who was serving. And she could play. She was a beautiful pianist, and remember the song Stars and Stripes Forever? She could tear that old the piano up. And we would do our lessons every day and behave ourselves if she would play Stars and Stripes Forever every morning when we opened and sang God Bless America or My Country 'Tis of Thee, that sort of thing. But when it came to the 8th grade graduation, my favorite teacher was home on leave, and he got to be there for the graduation in his Army uniform. So that was my beginning, my introduction to patriotism, doing the right thing and celebrating America, saying the salute to the flag every morning, singing My Country 'Tis of Thee. And he loved to sing, and there was always somebody in either the 8th grade or 7th grade who could play the piano. So then that was where patriotism began. And when I wasn't in school, I was in church. My father followed my mother into the church, and then she followed him into the Republican Party. That was many years later. She followed him on the outside, but she didn't follow him on the inside until Eisenhower came along. And by then television was with us, and so it was easy, and that she had a real conversion to Eisenhower. And again, in high school, there were people who were not there because they had gone to war. And again, patriotism was, and the war and everything was a part of your life. There was gasoline rationing, there was this, there was that. And you sold savings stamps in the hall. You took turns selling savings stamps in the hall during the lunch hour. And I had some of those for the longest time. And then when my grandson graduated from University of Illinois, I gave him the war bond as my gift to him at that time. So it is something you grow. Okay, let me check my outline here now. All right. By then, I'm grown up and finished high school, and then we married. My high school sweetheart and I married. He didn't see how he could afford to go to the University of Illinois, and so we decided to make it on our own. Okay, so he got a job, but he was never satisfied with that. And he drove the school bus. He bought the school bus that we had been riding to school. Yes. Okay, and he went to class during the day at a junior college, and then he would take the children, leave them at the school, and drive on to the next town, to the University of Vincennes, Indiana, and that's where he got his first 2 years. Finished that, and then we went on to the University of Illinois. He finished an engineering degree at the University of Illinois. By then we had 3 small children, and There were not student loans at that time, there were bank loans, and we had a few of those to get through. He worked part-time at the University of Illinois, I worked part-time, and so then he went to work as an engineer with Texaco. And so reporting forward, we had our first assignment in '71 in Trinidad in the West Indies. By then, the environmental issues were coming to light, and the Congress had passed the pollution legislation that all refineries had to update to meet the pollution requirements. Okay, so we accepted an assignment in Trinidad, the West Indies, to build a new unit there with the Texaco refinery, it was called the desulfurization unit. All right, it was an English-speaking country, but it was a foreign country going from Lawrenceville, Illinois, a town of 6,000, to Trinidad in the West Indies. But it was a great thing. By then, our children were all at the University of Illinois, so we were there. It's kind of a crunch to leave all your children behind and go to a foreign country. And that was before, to make a telephone call out of Trinidad, you had to go to Port Spain at the Hilton Hotel to make sure that you could get through. It was kind of that isolated, really. But it was an English-speaking country, and again, you don't sacrifice your life, you live your life, and you make the most of it. You learn, you bloom when you're planted. So from there we went from another to assignment to another assignment, all the time building the refineries and updating, and all the time the children were, but the company brought the children to us wherever we were during the summer vacation. And so it was a good life, So our last assignment was to Wales, which is part of the British Empire, as you well know. And while we were there, again, this is kind of interesting, and it's about the oil. The oil industry has been a big part of our lives and your lives as well, if you're here in Texas. All right. Texaco had an existing refinery, and Gulf Oil had an existing refinery, both on the west coast of Wales, in the Haverfordwest area, if you, those of you who are familiar with that area. Okay, by then oil was gushing in the North Sea, and they needed refineries that could refine it. And by then the computer industry had advanced to where it could measure the input of the crude oil into the refineries and then the output out as well. So, so we built a common unit between the two refineries to do that refining. And so we were there then. And it's during that time, again, an English-speaking country, and that was during the time that Prince Charles and Diana were married. And so that was an exciting time to be there. And there was celebrations in every little village, it was a pandemonium, but it was a joyous experience. And celebration, I'll show you my skirt, okay? You buy the fabric in the stores. You can buy the fabric in the stores, and I made the skirt, and I wore it again and again and again. You have to be a part of things to be a part of things, and so it was a great time to be there. And all the English symbols are there, along with the wedding bells, everything about the wedding. Okay, and so backing up just a little bit, when I was having my children, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip were having their children. Okay, so then when I was having grandchildren, they were having grandchildren. Now, they are having great-grandchildren, and I, in the last few months, have had two great-grandchildren. One is in Chicago. His name is Noah Robert. He's 3 months old now. And then Evan Matthew was just born last week, and he is in Michigan. All right. So while they're getting their great-grandchildren, I'm getting my and they. It's such a commonality that I have really kind of had fun with that. And so that kind of finished up. Oh, and I must tell you, this was when we were in Wales. That was the a tour of, or that was the time that Margaret Thatcher was elected and was in office. And that was an exhilarating time. She was a dynamic person. I spent a lot of time during the day with the television, and she was on the BBC in her hat and all that, and nobody got away with anything. She was right there. She was right there. And in fact, I told my daughter when I got back, and one of the grandchildren was just so strong-minded, I said, she's going to be our Margaret Thatcher, because she's not taking it from anybody. Okay. Now, and again, this is building your love of country and what is America. And when you're away from America, you really see it from a different vantage point, and people ask you questions they want to know about America. And they will debate, they love to debate, and their politics is different than ours, but the royal family, I think, makes up, they are such an influence on the country. They are such a pride, and they add so much to the country, and there's so much style, and so much dignity, and they don't get involved in the politics that much. They're not, they're above the fray as far as that is concerned, and that's why it was such a nice place to live. And you saw patriotism on every level, but it was always to pass the embassy and see the American flag out no matter where. It's just a thrill. Now we're getting to the point where, where I was beginning to express my, and went into retirement. I had time, I worked the elections there in Houston, and then I had an opportunity to go back to work, and I went, I was assistant to the director of senior adult programs at a large church, a large Methodist church. In fact, it was St. Luke's United Methodist Church there in Houston. And at that time was when they began to take in God, and they began to push "In God We Trust" out of the conversations and out of the displays and all. And then they began to take out of the courthouses and things, anything with a reference to God. Well, this really, really bothered me. I just could not understand why we as Christians didn't do more to speak up about that. And I still don't understand it. But there are reasons. They were, at that time, the thought of church and separation of church and state at that time was a common belief. Now, since we've sort of reestablished what that really means, that it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. But the churches at that time were very protective of their tax-free exemption, and they were being watched, that they were being threatened, and you had enough lawyers in the congregation, from Vincent Nelkins, Baker and Botts, or whatever, that they are going to make sure that things go well. So, but anyway, I still found a way to, my boss was a very considerate person, and he had a sense of adventure. He was an innovator, that's the word I'm looking for. And when I asked him if I could write a program, for the seniors, each month we had a luncheon, and I asked him if it would be all right if we celebrated the Pilgrims coming to America in November. Okay, that was great. And so we asked the people to come. I asked the ladies to come in a dark dress, and I made all these little white collars and things for them to put over the dark dress. And the body recall class made little paper hats, little pilgrim hats. And so and I asked the guys to wear dark. And then I had some hats. I said, if you have a hat at home, they were out of style with him, but I said, if you have one, wear it. Anyway, we had a congregation of the Pilgrims that day. And here came the boss in an Indian costume, and he decided to carve the turkey that day. So that was the introduction of the patriotic programs. And so then, as it evolved, I wrote the programs. The next year we had we were in a building program at the church. And the first thing the Pilgrims built when they came to America was a church. And so that's what we did. I asked the ladies to wear their dark dresses again, put the white collars on, and we were all Pilgrims, and that sort of thing. And then 4th of July, then we went ahead with that. As America grew, America establishes her schools. Okay, the churches did that. And that's what we drove home with that, reminded people that they started the churches, or they started the schools in the churches, and then they built the schools, they built the universities. So that's where I had that opportunity to express my patriotism and to share it with, and then invited people to bring their grandchildren during the summer when they were home, so they would hear these lessons as well. So that's most of my story, except I will confirm what Julie said when I met her. Oh, I have to show you this. Friends of mine called me, and when they had seen on their computers and all about the first Tea Party meeting at the park. I forget the name of the park, but it was a brand new park. And had hardly been built, it had just been built. Okay, so they said, you need to be there. And I said, well, I don't know where it is. And they said, we'll come and get you, we're going. And so we did that. And I made the sign, so here's the hat. That's not entirely why I'm a patriot, that's how I'm a patriot, entirely. And then he goes, okay. Thank you. As I said, one of the things I liked most, especially about the Tea Party, was John Bauman's program of trying to work with the churches to make them aware and to approach the members and to invite them to vote. A lot of church people don't vote. They trust it to other people to do, but we all have to do it all. And so, anyway, I wanted to. I found that expression too, and I told John. I said, I'm retired, and I was 72 when I retired, and I've been retired a long time. And I said, I don't know exactly what or how or what I can do, but one thing I would promise you, I will be faithful. So, and along with that, I will promise you I will do all I can, as well as I can, for as long as I can. And then I want to close with a scripture, 2 Chronicles 7:15. And we always do our devotional here here and have prayer and whatever. And so 2 Chronicles 7:15, now my eyes will be opened and my ears attentive to the prayer that is made in this place.
Thank you so much for your help. Wow. This woman is just remarkable. She's taught us so much. To do all that you have done, Garnet, to show us, to teach us how to be patriotic, how to be effective. You know, she does these little things that mean so much. She'll make food. When we were in the parking lots, Garnet would make food and bring it over, and she would get things on sale at the store and bring them by because we needed them. And she ran into Peggy Hausman one time at the Kroger, and she said the Tea Party is going to have people at the polls, and you said, and we needed some food. That's what it was. You told Peggy. You were shopping for food, and Peggy came up and asked you what you were doing, and so you were telling her about that, and she said, you know, I could bring some things over, and you said to me later on, I just opened that door and let her walk right on it. Peggy Hausman brought us brownies, I think, that particular time. But she's always looking for ways to support this country and just to support her church, to support her community, always. And you just have my greatest respect and admiration.